Welcome, paleontologists, geologists, and freighter crews, to the seventh Happy Prime Time's third production of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 18th of February 2015, and featuring Earthshock by Eric Sayward. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell, Randy Ronson McCulloch,
Always a pleasure.
Aaron Romeo Moon Burke,
Hello.
and Tim the Enchanter Sheridan.
Hey!
Wow, geez, Tim, tone it down.
My
Okay.
ears, my freaking ears.
Oh, such language.
Hey, we're on a mature disclaimer here.
All right, that's fine.
We also seem to still be on Revenge of the Cybermen on Twitch, or is that just me?
Oh, we might be.
It might be. I don't have the ability to update that, Bill.
Really?
I don't have a login.
All editors have that ability.
I don't know if
Because
he actually gave
Aaron was able to do it last time.
I don't
Yeah.
have the login.
He
Nobody
has a
well-
stream key. He has a stream
No, but
key,
you should be able to log in as yourself and do it. Aaron was able to last time. She doesn't have didn't have a special password.
Really? News to
Yeah.
me. Unless you
Go to
shared
the
something and I didn't
dashboard.
know about it.
Go to the dashboard and see.
Yeah, I believe you made everybody an editor while you were in connection limbo.
No, Bill made us all editors.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's what he said, Aaron.
I thought you implied that Matt had made
Well,
us all editors.
off of our,
No, Bill.
off of our behind the scenes conundrums, I think Matt was kicking off our first piece of news.
Okay, so news right away.
Yep.
So first bit of news. Happy birthday to Christopher Eccleston. I believe he just reached 51.
Yep.
Yep. Although it's a little belated because I believe it was
It was Monday.
Yep, it was Monday.
Only just slightly belated, but it's still birthday and it's still happened between this episode and last episode. So
Yep.
happy birthday, Chris.
Enjoy it and actually do more work with Doctor Who. Come on, Chris.
Pretty please. Well,
Get off your high
yes.
horse.
I can't blame him for missing on the 50th because it was going to be kind of slapped together anyway.
Yeah,
He
but
wasn't gonna have much
still, I
time.
mean, he's still of the opinion that he's gone past the work, he's done with it now. But no,
No, I
come
don't
on.
think
If
he's really
Big
that
Finish
kind.
asks you, if Big Finish gets permission and asks you, do some audio adventures with him. Come
At
on.
very least, yes. But I don't think he's of the opinion that it's beyond him anymore. I really just think that he'd rather come back as long as it's actually something decent for him to do.
All right.
And yeah, audio adventures would probably be perfect.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Of course, I'd also love to see Tennant and Smith make audio adventures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
God help us, Big Finish could only make Matt Smith better.
Yes. Pretty please with sugar on top, make him more likable.
Give his
Less-
character dimensions, damn it.
And less manic and stupid. Just a little.
Big Finish can make it better because they're not written by Moffat. Just saying.
Ding ding ding. Oh, you
Ha-
know.
hashtag make Briggs showrunner.
Then there would be no difference.
Yep. And that
Anyway.
would be for the better. Anyway.
Yep.
Speaking of Doctor Who and Moffat,
Yeah, our big news for this week is going to be that Block 2 has gotten underway for filming Doctor Who, starting as of the 15th. Returning to the director's chair for the first time since 2007 is Hetty MacDonald, who directed Blink, which, like the episode or not, you have to admit the direction on it was pretty tight.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
So hopefully here's to him possibly saving whatever episode he's working on.
And we don't know much about what the filming block for Series 2 is. We have one still image of the Slate 1, Take 1 clip in front of what looks to be possibly a unit control board or some other
that's
form
what I
of
was thinking. Yeah.
or some other
Actually-
future sci-fi board.
Should be know that Hetty McDonald is a female.
That's what I thought, but
Wasn't sure off the top of your head.
I didn't know either. Yeah, without looking it up. Whatever it is, it looks like you're dealing with a sizable invasion of something.
yeah.
According to the red
And
blips.
is that a Dalek eye stalk, or is that just a random reflection?
That looks like an
Where?
orbit. That's the orbital stuff around the sun. Or perhaps satellites around the Earth.
I mean the blue thing on the bottom left of the map below
No, it
Hawaii.
does not look like a
okay.
Dalek eye stalk. Just because it's blue does not mean Dalek.
Yeah. I'm not sure what
Well,
that
it's
would be.
also
off
that,
of.
and the dark spot around it makes me think shape of Dalek.
It's a little low, though.
And actually, I'm not sure if that is that or if that's camera glare. I can't
Yeah,
tell.
that's what
That could also be
that's why I
camera.
said
Because
it
I
could just
can
be a
I can
random
I can
reflection,
definitely
too.
see the clapper slate reflected in there too. So that might actually
yes,
be
you're right there. Yeah, so it probably is camera.
It's way too low, and it's not quite right. So yeah, it's probably a camera, if anything, or lighting guys. Either way.
So yeah, all we know is that this board looks like it's either some kind of unit display board or some kind of sci-fi ship board for something. And there's a lot of dots on it that look red, and red is usually the sign of bad guys. But we can't tell. As far as we know, this may be a list of active missile silos, you know?
Mauve is usually the sign of worst guys.
Only in episodes directed by Russell T Davies.
E10.
Yeah, it does look a little battleshipy, I'm just saying. But
B7.
the only other minor news in
by
this,
North America.
the only other news in this is that it does say that the Doctor and Clara will be back in the autumn, which I think has been said before, but is reiterated
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
Which means that we are probably looking at another August premiere date.
Most
Probably
likely.
once again on GeekCon weekend.
We shall
But
be
I am ready for
prepared.
this. I am prepared. I will go forward. Okay.
We have
So
the power.
I think that's all we can say about that.
Very good.
So, next piece of news. Aaron?
Alright, so it turns out that Aquinas School, or Aquinas College, in Stockport, Manchester, Greater Manchester, I believe, is now offering a crash course on the history of Doctor Who, offered by historian Michael Herbert. It'll be an 11-week evening class. It'll start out with the very early years, 1963. He'll be looking at the creation of Doctor Who by BBC's head of drama Sidney Newman and producer Verity Lambert. And then they're going to be going through all 5 decades worth of Doctor Who, including the 12 Doctors, all of the companions, and a lot of maybe in-depth look at the role of producers and script editors, which include Verity Lambert, Terrence Dix, Barry Letts, John Nathan Turner, Andrew Cartmel, and Russell T Davies. Let's see here, and it'll also examine why it was the show was taken off the air in 1989 and when it returned to 2005 to critical acclaim. So, be pretty cool.
Okay, so the one question I have to ask, is this for credit? And if so, what kind of credit? Because for credit, I would take this course.
Well, it is
Where
worth
would
noting that
history of art? Some sort of art history, I guess.
Art history,
Film history.
film
So
history
when they say history of Doctor Who, they're talking about the history in the show, like
Like
continuity,
the world
history.
history of it.
production history.
Yes. Because they're talking about the directors and the producers and the writers. They're not talking
except-
about the universe.
Or Stephen Moffat, apparently. He's listed. They list most of the producers and script editors, but there's no mention of Stephen Moffat in this little blurb. I'm sure
To be fair,
he'll
he's not
actually be
really
talked
history
about.
yet.
You see, yeah, that's the thing. He's not the past, he's the present, so...
Also, Michael Herbert has published a pamphlet called "Doctor Who and the Communist," which the television career of Malcolm Polk. So that
That's
sounds like it would
the
be kind of
professor of the
That
interesting.
course,
sounds like
right?
a lovely bedtime story.
God, I wish they would have this course
Springtime
here. This would
for
be such an easy
Hitler.
A for me.
And for those of
Yes.
those of you wondering, it's named after the school itself is named after Saint Thomas Aquinas. It's a Roman Catholic school with fairly good standing. It was listed as kind of inadequate, then it soared to outstanding, and now it's kind of dropped down to a good college to go to. And people who have attended it include Dominic Monaghan, who played Mary Doc Brandybuck in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, and also Sacha Dhawan, who he performed for An Adventure in Space and Time as Waris Hussein, the former director
For Doctor Who.
for Doctor Who. Yeah, so there's some
Back in
history.
the days when Doctor Who just had one director for the entire season.
God, that must have
So
been a
so
migraine.
there's some kind of geeky history associated with this college. So.
A bit. Just a wee bit.
Mm-hmm. And that's
Yeah.
it. That's it for that news.
All right. Then let us travel on. Let us travel on to Time Travel TV. Like you like that segue? Okay. So there's a new website called Time Travel TV. It's run by Real Times Pictures that did interviews with Doctor Who during the 1980s. 80s, hosted by Nick Briggs. That were like in depth with the actors and cast. And now these interviews apparently are going to be on this website for fans to either download or stream or purchase on DVD. And included in the initial releases is a brand new Mythmakers, a tribute to Anthony Ainley, who
I
can
believe we
never.
talked about like last week. I think was in our news.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah.
think so. So, and it also says that, as well as the Anthony Ainley tribute, interviews with special effects guru Mike Tucker, composer Dominic Glynn, 70s producer Graham Williams, writer David Fisher, and many more are in the pipeline. And it also mentions they will be in rare curiosities, such as an early 90s pilot for an unmade children's documentary series hosted by Sophie Aldred called Sophie's Choice.
Wow.
I'd be curious to see what that's like.
For those of you that don't remember, Real Time Pictures is kind of the really early predecessor to what Big Finish is now. It was, I believe, that was first of all, what was it? Video something, I believe, and then Real Time Pictures, and then and then BBV, and then Big Finish, essentially. Although Real Time Pictures was one of the more legitimate of the early operations.
Yeah, Real Time did a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot of interview and documentary work. They did, I think, have some spin-offs. I'm trying to confirm something before saying it, but I'm just waiting for this to load up. Real Time Pictures are the ones that created spin-off Downtime, which introduced Kate Stewart to the Doctor Who continuity. So,
And we thought they were defunct, but apparently not. And now they're making this. So this is kind of interesting.
It lives! And they're making a huge jump to digital, by the way. Holy smokes.
Yeah, this is kind of a big thing for people that like these spin-off companies, or these old spin-off stuff. So it's a bit of news, but it looks like mostly at this point they're sticking to just their interview and production stuff and staying away from the spin-off fiction that they did.
For the time being.
Partially
Well, it
because Doctor
says
Who is
that
back, so there's this need for it.
Yeah, and the
11
fact
shadows
that
are going to be added every month.
probably the BBC is looking a lot closer than they were back in the 80s and 90s.
So if they did spot
Yeah.
any actual official, unofficial Doctor Who stuff, they'd be going, "Nope, stop it."
And they're less
Yep.
likely to do things like sell someone the rights to a companion.
Yep. And
No one's going to buy the rights to Rose Tyler and make the Rose Tyler series of movies.
Thankfully.
Not
But,
that needs to
yeah.
happen. Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that was BBV was the one that really stepped on it, and the BBC hit BBV pretty hard.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they don't. And that was even before Doctor Who became big again. So I'm pretty sure they want to stay away from that landmine.
No strangers and professors here.
Yeah, they're probably just going to at this point say, let's just do our documentary stuff and let's pretend our fiction work didn't happen.
Till we see a big giant gaping hole the size of Texas so that we can drive that train through, but not like
Real Time was another one that Nick Briggs did work in, though. So
yeah,
he had his fingers in all the pies at that time.
Yes, he did. He was big. Well, he was like the biggest Doctor Who fan of that age. I swear. He was like the Doctor Who fan of the 80s.
Aside from the ones that were actually, retired people from the show.
Yeah.
Well, even there, because if there was a production being made of Doctor Who anywhere, Nick Briggs is like, I'm there.
I gotta see.
And some of these retired people are like, maybe I'll show up. Maybe
Well,
I
mean, people like
maybe we'll do something.
Sophie Aldred, I feel like was in every licensed or unlicensed Doctor Who production she could be in.
Yes, but
they
were also paying and hiring her to do this.
Yeah.
They were giving her money, whereas I don't know if Nick Briggs was getting paid for half of this, but he was showing up with bells on. Or I should actually say showing up with his ringtone modulator on.
Exterminate, exterminate, exterminate. So next big news then?
Yep, that is the end of that piece. And as usual, we wrap up with some news on what Big Finish productions are doing in the realm of Doctor Who. In the main range, a Fifth Doctor audio featuring Nyssa and Tegan by the name of Equilibrium is out. In the Fourth Doctor range, a new story featuring Leela by the name The Darkness of Glass is out. And Dark Eyes 4 box set is coming out in March. For those who are interested in getting into Dark Eyes, there are some various bundles available featuring set 4 as well as some of the earliest, ranging in price from $60 to $120, depending on what you can afford. Plus, of course, you can buy each box set individually. They did have a bit of a special sale going on over the weekend, but as it started after our last podcast, or it was announced after our last podcast and ended before this one, there's not much to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, much like the Valentine's Day special cards that apparently BBC put out for people, but they didn't announce until the day before Valentine's Day. So, yeah, that's kind of like missing our news. It goes from being news, from being non-existent to being news after we're done to being irrelevant by the time we get back.
Thank you for the last minute notices, you jerks.
Well, I don't think the BBC website put them out until the 13th, which was, kind of annoying. I think maybe somebody on the production team didn't get them done in time or something.
Or they came up with the idea on the 12th, published it on the 13th.
Yep. Something like that.
So that's about it as far as actual news.
Yeah, we're still in kind of a news light era at this point.
Yep. There have been surprisingly few leaks from the front, as it were, in terms of photos and such. But then again, I kind of get the impression a lot of the leaks last time were ones that Moffat leaked on purpose, so
I don't think
not
Possibly.
too
so.
shocking.
Most of the leaks that we've seen, as far as photos and stuff, have come from on-location filming, and it looks like the
Well,
first two
that's true. If
filming
they're mostly
blocks.
if they're mostly working in the studio, there wouldn't be that many leaks anyway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that does seem to be the issue. It's a lot of studio blocks, and which means probably we might be seeing some nice actual science fiction pieces taking place in other places instead of our usual. Hey, look, we're on Earth again. But
Look,
then
it's
again, we happen
Victorian
to
Earth
but
again.
we
Hey,
know by that clapper that this one is
we're in
involving the
London.
Earth.
We haven't had an episode set here since last season.
Yes, but you remember when Doctor Who would take us to the planet Echab Minor and deal with, stuff that wasn't related to Earth at all?
To be fair, most of that was before I was born,
The
so I don't really
golden
remember.
age.
I act like I remember it.
You youngers. You young people, I'm gonna go sit by the fire.
You dark kids, your hula hoops and your fancy handshakes and and the ant
Get off my
farms.
lawn!
Get off the lawn, yeah. Get off my TARDIS, boot.
Speaking of people getting off the TARDIS, since our feature today, I'm trying to stop laughing because it's kind of a somber occasion in the episode. But the biggest and best thing known about the episode we're discussing today, and why the reason why we reviewed this way back in 2012 was the fact that it features a companion exiting and the first companion death in just under 20 years at this. No, well, between 15 and 20 years at this point.
Yeah.
And the only companion death during the classic era that I think was on film. Because the early ones that you're talking about happened in serials that no longer exist, or at least if they do.
Currently.
Oh, I was going to say, like, Katarina died on screen, but yeah, that we can't watch it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Can't
Well,
actually
the
see it
interesting
anymore.
thing about Katarina's death is she obviously wasn't with the TARDIS very long. In that very same story, there are two people that die that were with the TARDIS about as long as her that also die. For whatever reason, one shows up on a lot of companion lists and the other doesn't. One of them being Nicholas Courtney's Brett Vion, and the other being Sarah Kingdom, who ended up being popular enough to somehow get some Big Finish companion chronicles, and apparently there's some weird stuff going on there, but I haven't listened to any of them.
I believe she had been touted as a companion, and then they changed their mind and offed her.
Ah.
So, like, she had been announced in, like, Radio Times as the new companion or something. And then the directors went, nah, this isn't working. Kill her!
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you didn't really have time to grow attached to these characters. Whereas Adric had been in for essentially the last 2 seasons.
From what I understand, Katarina's death was scheduled to happen to Vicky, but for whatever reason, she left a story prior instead.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Sarah Kingdom is not listed on the BBC's official Doctor Who website in their list of companions.
Which is fair because she was only in one story, but for a while you were seeing her on a lot of lists, just like you would see. Voyage of the Damned. What's her name?
Astrid Perth.
Astrid, yes.
Astrid,
she showed up on a lot of lists for a while too, and
That's before people had to clamp down and start to going, here's the criteria, please.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everyone's going to be a companion.
Yeah, and otherwise she was kind of there to replace Katarina.
But yeah, it's kind of it's those deaths. Like I said, you didn't have time to grow with them. Adric had been there for 2 seasons, bordering on 3.
Mm-hmm.
He had come in under Tom Baker. been through Tom Baker for like largely at least a season. Saw the leaving of Romana, saw the leaving of Tom Baker, and the addition of Nyssa and Tegan to the team, and then there was for the good chunk of a season with Peter Davidson. So people knew who Adric was.
Yeah.
And they had grown used to Adric. But in retrospect,
he was actually he was the longest serving person on the TARDIS at that time.
Yes, he was. He was senior boy on the TARDIS. And
including the Doctor, if you consider the regeneration as a new actor.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But if you think about Adric, though, death was about the only way to get rid of that character. It wasn't like he could say, I'm done with the TARDIS, I want to go home, because the fact that going home itself would have been an entire season's worth of adventuring.
Not to mention, I believe going home meant he would become a mutant weird thing, doesn't it?
No, because they left Elzarius on the Starliner.
Oh, that's right. Some of his people did leave, didn't they? Okay.
Yes. So he could have been returned to the Starliner, but it would have been a tremendous undertaking for the Doctor.
Itself, yeah.
That would have basically had to have been an entire season worth of adventuring to do. So either he would have had to have been left behind somewhere, or he had to die. Still, it was a tremendous shock to everybody who watched that episode, myself included, when it happened, because you just didn't expect it. You expected, secondary and tertiary characters to die. You expected red shirts to lose their lives, but not a supporting companion.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure all of the guest cast died in this episode also.
No.
Not all of them.
Well, no, that's right. There was that group of soldiers that escaped on an escape pod.
Yep, along with the captain of the freighter.
And second in command.
And the second in command.
I didn't realize that they had made it. I thought they got shot.
Nope.
Oh, no, you're right. I remember that scene now.
Just about
the
to
main
say,
one that
wow,
stands
Bill.
out is the paleontologist girl, which does get shot by a Cyberman.
Yeah.
Now, when this episode first aired in the 80s, was the ending spoiled by, like, the press releases or the ads?
No. Nobody...
John Nathan Turner did a very good job in clamping tight on any sort of press around this. The Cybermen, I think, were aired in the Radio Times as simply Leader and Lieutenant.
Correct.
And I'm pretty sure they included footage of Adric in the... they included footage of Adric in Time Flight so that the Radio Times would not accidentally spoil that he wasn't appearing.
Yeah. So, yeah, they kept a really tight lid on this, so anybody who saw it, your jaw hit the floor. And, of course, then they went with the silent ending.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which had never been done in Doctor Who history before. And as far as I'm aware, never has been done since.
Yep.
And, that was the thing. John Nathan Turner, as much as I have issues with how he ran Doctor Who, he had the cojones to do this. He had the cojones to say, yeah, we're going to write this companion out. We're going to kill him. We haven't had a companion that has actually died that did not come back in some way or another in New Who. Think about it.
We're not counting death of old age.
Yes, we're not counting death by old age. Because that's still a happy ending of sorts. Even if the Doctor's miserable by it, it's still a happy ending. And you could argue that Donna Noble is a death of sorts too, but the person is still alive. But yeah, because we have Rose Tyler trapped in another dimension, in a parallel world, and even epilogue to give her own copy of the Doctor.
Which
Mickey
is a little
Smith.
silly.
Mickey Smith, married to Martha Jones, freelance alien hunter. And of course, Martha Jones, married to Mickey Smith, freelance alien hunter.
Hmm.
You know what?
Jack Harkness
Honestly, now that I thinking about people dying, Wilf could have died in the end of time. I mean, he certainly had a run, like in terms of being an older companion, not in terms of his time with the TARDIS. But it's not like he was returning on the TARDIS anyway.
Yeah.
Doesn't it state at the end of time that he did die of old
Nope.
age?
No.
Hmm.
Nope.
No, because
No.
you see him in the epilogue at Donna's wedding.
Yes.
Oh.
Yep. So yeah, Martha Jones, Donna Noble, memory erased, but gets married and apparently has a
Yeah.
happily ever after. Apparently a rich one. Um,
Thanks to the
A
Doctor.
couple million rich because of the Doctor,
Jack
yes.
Harkness dies repeatedly, lives 4 billion years, dies heroically saving a planet, and even that's not certain because he is the freaking face of Bo.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no real answers there. Then you have the one kid. Yes, he's living the rest of his life with a hole in his head, but guess what? He can deal with that. He's still alive.
That one was his fault.
Yes, it was.
Mm-hmm.
If
I
we
can't
had
even
no
remember
holes
his
in our
name.
head, we wouldn't be able to breathe.
So that's all of your more than one episode companions for the Russell T Davies era. Then you get to Moffat's era. Let's see. Amy and Rory get sent back in time, live the rest of their lives going through history, live to a ripe old age together, and die.
And River gets to spend the rest of eternity as apparently a psychic program that can project herself wherever the fucking time and space Moffat feels like that day.
Mm-hmm.
Clara has died repeatedly, but is apparently born again to help the Doctor, and is still the existing companion of the Doctor. And then, of course, you've got Strax and Jenny. Didn't she die and come back?
They didn't really
I
explain
think
that.
Jenny died in Time of the Doctor, and then that got retconned out by the end of the episode.
Yes.
I think.
It was looking like she was
Now,
possibly going to die.
Strax actually did die and come back.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, any companion that's lived more than one episode in Doctor Who lives long enough to have a happily ever after of sorts. So,
now that's not to say that JNT doesn't get criticism for not using a better liked companion as the sacrificial one.
No, we are missing the elephant in the room, and that is, of course, Moffat's version of Mickey Smith.
Oh,
Danny Pink.
He was never a companion.
He traveled on the TARDIS.
Sort of a companion.
He was in there for multiple episodes.
He's in there for multiple
grandchild
episodes.
traveled in the TARDIS.
He was kind of an anti companion.
When did he travel in the TARDIS?
I think during the whole greenery episode.
He walked in the TARDIS and walked back out.
I thought the TARDIS moved while he was in it.
No, I think this Doctor was starting it up, but it never actually moved.
Okay.
To be fair, I mean, if he did, that makes him about as much of a companion as every one-off character in this episode and every child in that school.
Yes, except for the fact that he also has the benefit of being in multiple episodes, which only Courtney from there, I think, would actually qualify. But, and Courtney does qualify as a companion because she did go forward in time.
And Courtney does have a happily ever after. She becomes the president. Somehow, even though she's British.
One would argue, though, that Danny was thus as much of a companion as the Brigadier, and let's not open that can of worms, shall we?
The Brigadier traveled in the TARDIS.
The Brigadier traveled in the TARDIS at least a couple of times, yes.
He traveled from the antimatter universe to the real universe.
Anyway. Either way, he died, and it was a bit of a shocker when Danny Pink got abruptly hit by a car.
Mhm.
Would have been more of a shocker if they had the cojones to write it on screen. But yeah,
To show him being hit by the car on screen, it
probably would have not been fitting for family television. Yeah,
would not have been fitting for family television or would look remarkably fake
they would have done
because
it
of the
on
fact
Torchwood, but it would have looked remarkably fake.
Torchwood was also on a later hour.
Yes.
It was on later deliberately so they could aim it at adults. You have to remember that.
Yeah. No. No. I'm not saying Torchwood definitely had a different audience. I'm just saying yes, they would have done it there. It also probably would have looked fake.
Either way, we're missing the point is the fact that the new series hasn't had the guts in most places to do what they did in Earthshock. And that was to actually kill off a long-term companion, a multi-season companion that the audience had grew to either love or hate, depending on who you ask. I loved Adric. I thought Adric was a great. He was somebody I identified with quite a bit.
Well, you're also looking at that through rose-colored glasses, though, admittedly. Because you were watching the show when you were young at the time, too.
I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know if that's
I'm
rose-colored
talking
glasses anyway.
about-
If you watch it as a child, you'll relate to the
Yes.
child one anyway.
Exactly. I'm talking about the fact that Adric was one of the few male companions that had been on Doctor Who.
Naturally,
and
the
thus-
doctor didn't like him because he was male.
He was a bit of a brainy boy, as I was as a kid. Therefore, I identified with Adric quite a bit. So he was much. He did tend to suffer a little bit from Wesley Crusher syndrome, but at the same time, he was still somebody that I felt, I could identify with a little. And then he died.
Mhm.
What are the best episodes to watch with Adric in them? Because I feel like I haven't watched much great with him, but I also have not watched the E-Space trilogy yet. I don't know how he is there.
So in the E-Space trilogy. I liked him in Kinda.
The Visitation, he
Keeper
was
of
okay in.
Traken. Keeper of Traken's a good one to watch him in.
Mhm. We do learn that he has remarkable healing capabilities in the Visitation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember about the Visitation is the alien costumes and the death of the screwdriver.
Yeah.
Actually, we knew he had remarkable healing capabilities as of Full Circle, because that was kind of what the Elzarians had, is they were hyper adaptive. So their bodies would heal really quickly.
He actually commented on it in the Visitation, though, because
It was the
Tegan
first-
or Nissa is amazed at how well he recovers from his sprained ankle.
Well, yeah, but again, that was Tegan and Nissa both joined afterwards, and we hadn't really seen Adric be physically hurt like that. We'd seen him drained in Castrovalva, but we hadn't really seen him physically hurt. We'd also seen him sick behind a tree, but that's because Matthew Waterhouse had had too much to drink on the night before filming. But no, it was a character that I had liked. I had loved, it was an era that I liked especially. I'd loved Legopolis, Castrovalva, Kinda. I loved a lot of these episodes, and Adric was a favorite companion of mine. So when I watched Earthshock, I did not go into Earthshock expecting him to die. And when they did it like that, especially with the silent ending, I think I was sitting there eating a bowl of cereal at the time, and the spoon just fell out of my hand as I just stared open-mouthed at what I had just seen on Saturday morning television. And this was, of course, a rerun for us, even, I think. I don't know, 86, it might have been a first-time run, I don't know. But still, it had already happened in England 2 years prior, at least. But wow, I mean, I was all choked up for a while. I think I actually got depressed as a kid. And
That was the first time I was depressed as a child.
It's still, it's I'm still to these days surprised that John Nathan Turner had the balls to do it.
Well, definitely got attention. Not even just for that though either, but it definitely got attention.
So now that we have talked a bit on the episode, before we're going to talk on the episode, I think we should probably move on and actually talk about the episode.
I would,
We can do that.
I'd just like to throw in that I would like to see them try to save Adric.
Actually, but before we do, I
Retcon the
just
death.
want to ask everyone, what is your what is your saddest companion ending? Let's do the left to right thing. Oh, damn it! How the hell? It keeps coming up as a grid. How the hell do you even get a left to right, Randy?
What?
A grid? What?
Oh, there we go. Now I got it left to right. So it looks like Randy's on the left. Unless you just talked about your saddest, which is entirely possible from how you described it.
It is actually for me because I don't think I've hit anything with that level of shock. Even Donna Noble, who I loved Donna Noble as a companion, and what happened to her was sad. I don't think it hit me with the sheer amount of shock value of hit by a truck that Adric's death did. Donna's fate
Matt,
just
what about
made...
you? Oh, sorry. Did you have more you were saying? I thought.
No, Donna's just made me a little depressed. Adric's death actually had me shocked and then depressed. So.
Yeah.
So to me then?
Yep.
Honestly, I saw this one out of sync, so Adric's death didn't hit me as hard, I guess, in the long run of things. So actually, the one that probably would have hit me harder was Donna. Was losing Donna, even though it wasn't technically a death. It's kind of a pseudo character death anyway, as far as the way she was working goes. So.
Tim?
I would have to say my saddest thing was probably Adric. Just because that it didn't surprise me because I knew it was coming, because of the internet and such things. And yet, even when I still saw it for the first time, I was just struck by how sad it was, and that was it is like even when you prepare yourself, you're not prepared.
Right, I understand.
Yeah. So I'd say Adric was my saddest companion departure.
Aaron?
Mine would have to be Perry. Because even though she didn't die, I don't think when I first saw it, I don't think I even bothered finishing the Trial of the Time Lord story arc, so I never got to see that they had retconned her death. So, like, her initial death that we see where she's forced to have her brain swapped out with that of an alien, and she wakes up and she's got the shaven head, she's like commenting about how warm the body is as, the alien is hugging her chest and everything. It's like, oh, I have boobs now. It's kind of funny now that I think about it, but it was pretty horrifying when I was
Yeah, that was another jaw dropper.
That was a little rapey for me too, because they force her down. They're like measuring her head, and they force her down, and you can see them come at her with like the implements and stuff like that. Then next time you see her, she's like talking with this strange deep voice, and she's got this shaven head, and yeah, I totally sympathize or empathize with Brian Blessed's character and just zapping the entire room into oblivion. Because that was bad enough that it killed Doctor Who for me. That the show wasn't fun after that. It wasn't fun. It was horrifying. It reminded me of the World of the Worlds TV series that was on at the time that had the same kind of, let's have aliens take over people's bodies, and they can never be removed. You can never regain the people that they were anymore. It was horrifying. It was horrible. and quite disturbing to look at. So, and not just, it wasn't just my saddest companion moment, it was the saddest Doctor Who moment, and it killed the show for me.
Fair, fair. For me, I'm going to go with. I mean, as a brand new fan, combined with how they sold it, Rose Tyler's initial departure from the TARDIS. I mean, granted, they built that up as a huge event and they sold it. A lot of that was the acting, but just the devastation on them as they as they grew apart. Well, physically
Yeah.
anyway.
Kill
Similarly, I do just
Kill-
want to mention. Sorry, go ahead.
Now, just take your imagination for a moment, Bill. Cut the ending where, the whole Bad Wolf Bay bit of that.
Right.
Imagine her getting sucked in, and imagine if Pete hadn't been there to grab Rose, and she's sucked into the void, and the void closes. Imagine how that would have been for a shock ending.
That would have been something.
That was the level of shock that I think Adric's death did for me. Just to tell you.
I do
So-
want to mention one which is kind of similar to me, and that's in the fact that how it's sold by the Doctor. I'm not a huge fan of Mel, but just seeing how distraught the Doctor is at the end of Dragonfire when she just decides she's done traveling with him and is going to travel with someone else really sells that departure to me for kind of the same reason.
There's a lot of times that kind of happens with the distraught in the Doctor's face. Leela's departure is another one where the Doctor is almost just seems to be crushed for when he's talking. And he tries to put on this brave face, but the second the TARDIS door closes, you can tell it's really affected him.
So it's a lot like Joe's departure then.
Where he just drives off sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although
Yes.
that one was a double hit for the Doctor because he lost Leela and K9 at the same time. But at least he could fix one of that.
Yeah. John Leeson's not going anywhere.
And then Romana's departure really, really sacked the Doctor.
Oh yeah.
To the fact that he was still moaning about it two serials later.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you follow the dialogue, they were together for a couple hundred years.
Mm-hmm.
Not surprising.
Yeah, you'd almost expect the subtext on there. You almost expected a lot of subtext on that one.
Well, like we were talking about when we reviewed Legopolis, his girlfriend leaves him. He gets stuck with the kid brother and she takes the dog with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was it left him in a bad place. So there's a lot of endings like that. So, was that everybody?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think it's time to, like I said, talk about the episode. So I believe that means summary time. Anybody want to do the summary, or shall I handle it?
Not I, says the blind man.
I'll go through with it. Wow, I'm crackling up a lot tonight. I'll try to do it.
If you're going to be able to do it without static.
Oh, I just adjusted the microphone, so hopefully I should do it. Seems to be doing it so far.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. So, trying to think, how did this actually start? It started with, okay, so yeah, the basic start of Earthshock is that we see a couple people in jumpsuits running around on what is presumably Earth. They come to a small entryway in the middle of nowhere, and you get some banter between them. You get to figure out that the one woman in the lighter grayish jumpsuit is a paleontologist of some sort, and that she and her fellow scientists were apparently attacked underground by something. They were checking out caverns and were recently getting very close to some fossils and other interesting items. And all of a sudden they were under fire, and she was the only person that was close enough to get to the surface and go for help. So all these soldiers are here to try and find out what happened and where everyone is gone. Um, to this, they scan the area, but they cannot find where that there are any life forms down there until they actually start entering. Um, they proceed to go through the caverns and get little minor flares, but nothing actually happening at the time. Around the same time, we go back to the TARDIS just after the events of the previous episode, which was Black Orchid, I believe. As I
believe
recall,
so.
is also the title of the book that was handed to him at the end of that episode, and that the Doctor pulls out at the very beginning of this one. Apparently, he enjoyed the read and is suggesting it to Adric, to which Adric is having one of his little tantrums where he feels like he's being left out or made a joke of. He continues to argue with the Doctor and that he wishes to kind of go home right now, and starts to plan his own way to get back home, even though the Doctor just won't hear it because it has to go through E-space, which is a hazardous at best journey without the proper coordinates. The Doctor decides that he wants to have a walk and parks right in the same cavern where they found the fossils on Earth. And this is, I believe, sometime in the distant future. I forget when. I don't think they actually gave a real time frame other than it's more
the 2500s.
advanced than the previous Cybermen episodes, or at least most of them.
Patrick gives a year, but I don't remember what it is.
It's like 25, 24 or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Upon landing, the Doctor heads outside to take a breather and have a little stroll, not that he walks very far. It's a small cave, and it's fairly cold, so he's trying to catch his breath after even a short stroll. I believe, Tegan goes out with him first to try and calm him down. Nissa talks with Adric a little bit, and Adric's just like, I know this is getting a lot of hand, just let me do my thing, and I'll talk to the Doctor when he's ready to talk. So he stays in TARDIS, and Nissa heads outside to continue talking with Tegan and the Doctor. While out there, they figure out that the cave is still lit up by phosphorescence and start doing some banter about the dinosaurs. And Tegan also mentions her own species, to which the Doctor kind of jokingly pokes at it as her people being very primitive at the time. Possibly a mention back to the tribe of Gum.
Tribal Gum would not have been around at the time of the dinosaurs, though.
No, but they still would have been very primitive. Not unlike the tribe of Gum itself already, but anyway, that's another side story. So Adric continues to stay inside of TARDIS until he finally gets all the coordinates that he believes to be right to try and get him back to E-space and try and get him back home with his people. Meanwhile, the Doctor wanders a little bit further out with Nissa and Tegan into another cavern area, but they also notice that there's some construction work already going on there. The Doctor tries to persuade everyone to go back, but the others are too curious, and before they know it, they are jumped by the soldiers, who start questioning who they are and why they're down here. During the span of this, also a couple of other soldiers have tried to come back or try to come in from the caves, only to have the random life scan spark continue to happen and having people drop like flies. I believe at this point they lost, I want to say, between 4 and 6 people up until this point, that something just went off the radar and died.
5, because there was 3 in the first group and 2 in the second group.
Okay. I was pretty sure it was pretty close between 4 and 6, so it might have been 5. They continue
By the way,
to
the year was 25-26. I was off by 2 years. My apologies.
26. Okay. So they also noticed that there was a rock fall since last time the paleontologist was down there, so they start to dig through the rubble and find a hatch in the wall. They don't know what it is, and they start to investigate further, only to have 2, I believe it was androids, they called them.
I believe so. Big
Uh,
black
Yeah.
humanoid-looking robots.
Yes.
Yep, androids.
So they had 2 androids suddenly pop out and attack, and they started firing the same sound effect weapons that the paleontologist recognized from when her and her people were being attacked earlier. The doctor and this Antiguan all run for cover, and when asked whether or not they're androids, the doctor quickly points out that they'd attack them just as likely as they would attack the soldiers, and nearly get shot at the same time, as he mentions it. At the very end of this, which is the very end of the first episode, we see the android focusing on the doctor's face, and then only to suddenly pan out of the android view to see Cybermen, and one of them yelling, destroy them at once." They repeat this at the very beginning of the next episode, and we continue to see the androids and the soldiers fight for a little while. They manage to trick the androids into coming out into the open, along with Adric coming out and confusing the androids further. They destroy the androids and then blast a hole into the door of the secret metal square. And with a little bit of intervention from the doctor, they finally get the door to open to find a huge bomb. Well, I say huge as in very powerful, but it's relatively small, like barely the size of a suitcase. The doctor sends all the others packing into the TARDIS except for Adric, who continues to stay around to help the doctor to try and disarm the bomb permanently, while also having the TARDIS at the same time try to block the signal so that the bomb can't go off. They're very close to disarming it when the signal boost gets too high and the doctor has to go on blind luck, and thankfully manages to stop the bomb before it can go off. The Cybermen are dismayed because this weapon, being as secret as it was, could have been powerful enough to actually destroy the Earth, which is about to begin major talking plans to help other alien races fight off the Cybermen. As this continues to clear up, the doctor and the others figure out where the signal came from and decide to head off and find the source. They then therefore come upon a space freighter, which is nearing its planned destination, which is to drop off at Earth with its supplies, and figure that the freighter might not actually be aware of the Cybermen invasion already being planned from within. So they go aboard to try and get attention and accidentally get the doctor and Adric arrested, supposedly for murder, which is actually a frame-up with the help of someone on the inside with the Cybermen. They don't disclose right away, but it is actually the third officer in command who later betrays them. However, in the meantime, they are marched up to the front while the ship was finally just recently given the clear to go ahead to Earth, so there's nothing technically stopping it, and even if it was to go slightly off schedule, they wouldn't be aware of stopping it until it was pretty much too late at this point. This is when the Cybermen finally decide, okay, enough is enough. We got the doctor here in our possession. The TARDIS is on this ship. It's not going to go anywhere without the doctor. We can now plan to set up our second try at this, which is to send the freighter itself careening towards Earth, which would cause equally as devastating an explosion, and still kill off most of the planet, and be a big show of what the Cybermen can do when they feel it, like it, and feel up to it. The Doctor and Adric are kept on the bridge, and the Cybermen drain most of the power of the ship just to bring their own numbers to life and start the invasion that would take over the bridge of the ship. They kill all the crew members on their way there, except for the captain and the second command, and obviously, as mentioned, the third in command, who is actually the betrayer. And when the Cybermen finally get there, they also find that some of their own Cybermen in the back ranks were somehow killed, which means that there are more people on board still fighting Cybermen, and they take that as treason and kill the third in command for supposedly lying to them. The cyber leader then decides that after capturing Tegan and a couple of others, that what's going to be the major plan is that everyone is going to be kept on this ship, while the Cybermen all take to the escape pods and get out, and that the cyber leader is going to join the Doctor on the TARDIS, and that the ship is going to be sent into space, sent to Earth still, this time permanently locked into its destination with, I believe it was hyperdrive they called it active.
Mm-hmm.
So that way it would impact at a relatively high speed and cause a ton of damage. They also attach their own machine in order to cause this locking mechanism to happen. And they lock it with 3 logic codes. While the Doctor is being marched back to the TARDIS, Adric is still on the bridge with a couple of the other side characters we have met throughout the story, trying to actively break the logic codes in order to stop the frigate from hitting the planet. As they continue to watch from the TARDIS, the machine does start to make the frigate start doing crazy things, including going further and further back in time, to the point that it actually goes back to the time of the dinosaurs, and just about the right time for a certain supposed meteor to hit the planet and cause a huge explosion which will send tons of dirt and debris into the atmosphere and kill off the dinosaurs. Hence, the frigate is stuck on that course and becomes a replacement for the meteor that apparently never actually was. Thus, for the Cybermen are the reason why the dinosaurs were killed off, technically speaking. The cyber leader is obviously not very pleased with this and tries to kill the Doctor and the others in his rage, supposedly. More like, well, you followed our plans, but I'll still get revenge kind of a deal. And doing so, Tegan jumps on the back of the leader. The Doctor pulls out a pin that Adric has had since the beginning and chokes the leader with it because it's made out of gold. While the leader is weakened, the Doctor steals his weapon and shoots him 3 times in the chest to make him finally stop. Another backup cyber commando comes marching in from the back of the TARDIS, to which I believe Tegan shot him?
Yes.
Yeah. Tegan shot him, and then our main 3 are still on TARDIS as they try to get the TARDIS moving again, but because the cyber leader shot the main console at least 2 times in the midst of the panic, it's no longer working the way it should, and they can't save Adric in time before he's part of events and causes the ship to still crash. Hence the end of Adric, and hence the end of the dinosaurs, and the rather downer note of the episode. The end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a couple of things I'd like to point out before we do our basic. The sets, in particular, the console the Cybermen used, were made from pieces from another science fiction movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I also believe parts of the rest of the sets were as well.
Bits and pieces.
This was around the time that the movie Alien had been made. And the cyber console and I believe parts of the ship sets were actually used, were redressed pieces that were taken from the Nostromo. The cyber bomb and the lights on the cyber console were actually counting down same numbers that you actually saw appear on the screens on the Nostromo. Which does make me to believe, What would this episode have been like had it been directed by Ridley Scott?
Very dark.
Yeah, lighting would be completely different. It would be a lot creepier.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another thing I'd like to note is that one of the costumes in here would be used in a later Cybermen story. Well, at least partially a Cybermen story. And that is the black androids. One of the
Oh,
black androids
yes.
would be repainted silver and would become the Rastan warrior robot in the Five Doctors.
Mm-hmm.
No wonder why they looked so familiar.
Yeah.
I was thinking that as I saw them myself.
Yeah, I actually confirmed that by looking it up. But the Nostromo is a bit of an interesting bit because that was a high budget movie.
Mm-hmm. I think Alien was in 79, wasn't it?
Um,
78, I thought.
78 or 79, either way. So that would have been before this episode by at least a year or two.
Meaning those sets were sitting around.
Getting reused and repainted and everything for how many years?
Alien is 1979.
79.
Okay.
This was filmed in either late 81, early 82.
So yeah, those sets had like a good 2 to 3 years, so they were around for quite a while already.
Yeah, but mind you, they weren't the whole sets; they were pieces of the sets.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the console, and I think I saw a part of one of the corridor pieces, and that was really what I saw. Still, just the thought of Ridley Scott's Earthshock is just frightening. One of the other differences between this and normal
Might have
Doctor
been John
Who is
Hurt.
the silent ending for this actually had scrolling credits, which had not been done since the War Games and would not be done again until Rose.
Not even,
Normally,
well, not the TV movie?
I think
No.
the TV movie technically counts. Actually, yeah, they
yes,
had.
it did, but it didn't use scrolling credits either. At least not in its original
Yeah, I
release.
was just gonna say, I don't think it had scrolling credits either. No, back in the 90s they were doing it the other way too. The
Yeah.
fade-ins.
Okay, so let's go down my list. What you liked about this movie, about this serial in general, and Matt, you're up first.
I'm up first. What I liked in general. I liked that we looked like we put some money into the Cybermen again.
The new cyber outfits are very nice.
And I will also say,
compared to-
while they are dangerous at times, they are still a little less cumbersome than some of the previous ones, too. So it's a
Yep.
catch-20 on that one.
Yeah, I actually thought that these were more of a change from the Invasion ones than they actually are. But having actually watched the Invasion and then seeing photos of the two side by side, it's actually a lot closer than I thought it was.
There were still some very important changes. I think
There were definitely changes, yeah. But I mean, I thought that this was the one that had gotten rid of the teardrop motif and such, when that's not actually the case.
wasn't it?
No, the Invasion got rid of them.
Okay. No, the Invasion still had the teardrop motif.
No, yeah, the Invasion one still had it.
I could have sworn during the Invasion we were talking about that.
No, they got rid of the lip bump
Yeah.
in the Invasion. They had the teardrops and then they had a lip bump that was similar to the teardrops, so they got rid of the lip bump instead for the Invasion.
But
It is there.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that the Invasion had
Really
the
weird
teardrops.
because when we reviewed the Invasion, I could have sworn we were talking about them not being there, and apparently they are there. Looking at the images on Google, so
Yeah,
now
they
I
were there.
That's
Yeah,
what we talked about.
I do remember us talking about the lip bump being gone.
Mhm.
And I believe they were still there in Revenge too.
Yeah, because they were pretty much the same costumes.
Same helmet that just refigured the way top
There
part
was some changes to the helmet
light.
too, because I think they were wrapped in a plastic that they didn't used to be. because I noticed the handlebars were different. And
Well-
yeah, the cyber leader at the very least still had the teardrop in Revenge. So this was the first time that the teardrop was gone.
For a while now,
Um,
yeah.
Of course, the jaw was completely different, and to be honest, that's the one part of the cyber suit I didn't think was an improvement until they partially filled it in, making it more opaque at the end, which they had to do because this was also one of the first times the microphone was actually inside the helmet instead of being dubbed over in post.
Hmm.
And the big issue with that is the fact that they would tape the batteries to the top of the helmet using just regular tape,
Oh,
and it got hot in those helmets, and the tape would eventually lose
I-
its
Come off.
I'm
cohesion.
sorry, I'm not a costuming master, and you and I know that's a big no-no.
And you'll notice in one of the I think one of the scenes that the cyber leaders in the TARDIS, you can actually see this black square on the side of where his mouth is, and
Hmm.
that's actually the battery container that has slid down the helmet and is now in his jaw.
Mm-hmm.
This was later revised in later cyber helmets, but it took them some time. And it is why this is the only time I think the cyber mouths were fully opaque, um, or fully transparent. They got filled in with like frosting in later issues so that you couldn't see it if that happened.
Actually, they started doing that during this one because of the
Yes.
battery thing sliding down.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can, for most of it, usually see pretty well through it, and you can see the little bit of fleshy movement with, I believe they had a little bit of tinfoil in there as well.
It wasn't tinfoil, it was cling film.
Clean film.
Uh, yeah, it was basically like saran wrap put on the mouth.
Yeah. But it was also still painted.
Yes.
So it was
But the
kind of
idea was to
metallic.
make it look like it was some kind of desiccated thing, and I don't really think that that particular bit worked too well. I liked it better when it was partially opaque because then you couldn't make out what it was, just that it was something.
Just something moving in there, yeah. Just a little bit of something still alive in there, just barely.
But other than that, those suits were beautiful. Especially redesigned. Definitely showed some more modern lines than the previous cyber suits, that which were looking old even in Tom Baker's era.
Hmm.
So, Bill, what did you like about the serial?
I'm going to. I'm going to go ahead and say that the visuals just felt as well, especially looking at it right after Revenge. The visuals do come off as very strong, and altogether, even separate from that, I mean this is a very visually strong era, and I think the sets and costuming basically are really stand out as being strong here, especially compared to the past of the Cybermen.
Yep. Yeah, definitely we have seen a leap forward in visual effects, and that was mostly something that John Nathan Turner pushed into it. Um, Things looked a lot better than they had in previous eras. Um, and this would continue to go on through the Doctor Who through the 80s. He would take upgrades whenever he could afford them. So, Tim,
I really liked the way this episode didn't seem to rush into the really heavy stuff all at once. I sort of I thought it used its time very, very well. That it starts off with a typical adventure, and then 4 episodes later, the hammer falls, but it doesn't seem like it's shocking, but it doesn't seem abrupt. If
okay.
that if that makes any sense.
it feels like it's naturally flowing the way it should.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Aaron, what about you? What did you like about this serial?
About this one, well,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like the kind of the tension between Adric and the Doctor. It kind of hammers home, when Adric does finally die, it does kind of, you see a lot of the regret on the Doctor's face. Like, gee, I shouldn't probably have been yelling at him like a few hours ago, or I shouldn't have been giving him crap a few hours ago. And it's kind of nails kind of the more interaction that the characters seem to have in this era between each other. It's Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting because, like, at first it starts out with them fighting, and then Adric shows that he was just kidding, but that he could still do the work to find out his way home, to figure his way home, and all that. And then, like, everything happens with the Cybermen, and then, like, Adric is dead before you know it. So that was pretty cool.
Okay. So I think what I liked was the directing of this particular episode. Um, Obviously the script is a little bit muddled. How it kind of waffles from Earth back to the spaceship, but I'll talk about that later. For what we got, the direction on it was pretty crisp and fairly tight. A lot of the cyber, especially the attack scenes where the Cybermen are attacking people, seem to be very crisply directed.
I don't think
And
they're attacking people with their foreheads anymore. No, they have guns now. That's right.
They've
yes,
now got guns.
Yeah.
but I feel like that was some pretty tight direction bits. Both the fighting scenes in the cave and on the ship seemed very well done.
I'm
And
trying to remember who the director was.
he was, from what I saw, he was a bit of a tight ass.
Yes.
Um,
Mm.
Yes, he did not make many friends during his stay on Doctor Who, but you know what? They saw in the end when these episodes came out was enough to keep him on as director anyway.
The
It,
director is Peter Grimwade. I'm looking up to see what else he did. Full
apparently,
Circle, Legopolis, Kinda, and Earthshock. As the director, he also wrote a few episodes and was a production assistant in the
mhm. he
third and
was
fourth Doctor eras.
he was kind of an old school director. Interviews with the cast talk about him walking around the set with his fingers forming the little box as he looked at stuff. If he wasn't getting the right performance from an actor, that he'd push them out of the way and show them on the set how to do it because he was down there instead
Definitely
of
could
up at
not
the
have done
booth.
that back when he started, I don't think.
Yeah, but I mean, so he was this really pushy director, but he got results. I mean, Full
and
Circle,
Earthshock is definitely a sign of
Legopolis,
that. Yeah.
Kinda, and Earthshock, I mean, are considered to be some of the better episodes
Mm-hmm.
You have to kill
of
that
this era.
Cyberman 157 times to get it right, damn it. Wait,
Hmm.
wrong director.
So he's kind of an anal retentive perfectionist, but he got results. Okay, so let's move on to what you didn't like about this serial. And
Back
I
to me.
believe I started with Matt.
Oh, what I didn't like about this episode. Trying to think. Anything overall I didn't care for. I will have to agree. I believe Randy kind of mentioned a little bit that the script does kind of get muddled in the middle for a little while. I think in particular between the halfway point and two in the beginning part of the third episode.
Between, oh
Yeah.
look, a wall randomly filled with dinosaur bones, to, oh, now we're going to have to use Chekhov's dinosaurs as a plot device.
Mm.
I think that's a bit of a jump, but okay. Although I will say that, yeah, that set in particular was probably the weakest one out of all of them. Because, yeah, those dinosaurs were pretty flat. But, Yeah, the script kind of got muddled between episodes 2 and 3, but thankfully 3 started to shaping back out again before it got
Alright.
too noticeable. But definitely wasn't a smooth transition.
Alright. Bill?
I'm going to go with this was probably expected from me, but the fact that the Cybermen do nothing Cybermen-y. Now, I mean, it is worth noticing that all of their best things, they have a lot of very great visual moments and, angry robots attacking moments. I'm going to not going to mention some of the specific moments just in case somebody uses them for a favorite later, but the fact that that's basically what they are in this serial is angry attacking robots out for revenge against the Doctor does hurt them, especially compared to when considering the fact that this is a generation's introduction to the Cybermen, and it's completely lacking what made the Cybermen scary to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And mind you, it's even mentioned in the episode when Tegan or Nissa asked the Doctor about, or
He
it was
says
either
they're
that or
worse than robots, but then nothing in
no,
the episode explains
no.
why.
He says something about it. It's like compared to some, he's positively flippant,
Oh
referring to
yes,
the cyber leader, who
right.
of
Oh
course
yes,
is
when I think that's when the captain asks if all Cybermen are so dedicated.
yes. And so even the Doctor seems a bit surprised at how they're acting. And so at least they acknowledge it a bit in the script. As they're kind of paving the way for the pompous cyber leader, as played by David Banks, through the rest of the 80s. Because he's kind of pompous and smug.
Which, granted, is nothing new for the Cybermen, but he does take it to a new level.
Oh, yes, he does. Oh, yes, he does.
Well, it's still better than clever.
Well, that like I said,
Clever.
that was pompous and smug.
That was
This,
pompous and smug then, but still,
yeah.
you get to the point where he is, I mean, this is obviously the beginning of the camp era of Doctor Who. Because you've got Anthony Ainley as the Master, who's essentially Snidely Whiplash. And you've got the cyber leader,
You're the
who's
camp
almost...
one. I'm not camp.
And then you've got the cyber leader, who's almost the same way. You almost can see the cyber leader twirling a mechanical mustache, too, so... And that did start a little bit in Revenge of the Cybermen, with their cyber leader acting a little
Posy.
but Banks takes that particular performance and turns it up to 11. And we haven't had that level of cyber arrogance since, although I think Mr. Clever comes close.
Mr. Clever does come very close, yes.
So, Tim.
Mr. Clever and damn it, what was her name? The Cyber King, Harrigan. Harrigan,
Tim,
whatever it was.
What didn't you like about this episode or this serial?
This cereal, I didn't like it the way it was soggy in milk. Oh, okay. No, but seriously.
And I believe Tim has just become the first person on the podcast to earn an honorary kick in the dick from me.
Aww.
Mind you, you're still behind Bill, who I believe I actually would wind up having to castrate with the amount of dick kicks that I have to award him.
Okay. It seems that if this was illustrative of how you can have a bit too many companions, because it seemed like there wasn't enough for things to do to justify having so many people in the cast. Because it seems that Nissa was just regulated to just standing around.
Yeah, this was not a strong episode for Nissa.
No, it was not.
Yeah.
What's
Her
that,
main
Tyrus
job was
Console?
to
You need a
ask
hug?
about
This little hug.
dinosaurs.
And to sit there and go, we shouldn't go out with that magnetic field going on.
Yeah, it could be
That
bad. Like cross the stream's bad.
Yeah, it was not a high point, and it was obvious that Soward was having problems writing for Three Companions. And yeah, that's the big problem. The larger your main cast is, the more roles you have to write for them. And this one also had a very large supporting cast, which didn't help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because you had to have the soldier leader had to have a distinct personality. The paleontologist lady, the captain, number one, number two.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was it and
David
the Cybermen.
Banks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
By the way, I just found 80 Cybermen doing the invasion walk.
but yeah, so it becomes an issue. And it's obviously that, at that point somebody had to give, and it wound up being Nissa, unfortunately.
I mean, Nissa at least
Hmm.
she had a consistent group of lines. She asked questions and then she used them to sound smart later on. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, she could have had more to do.
And I believe that is why they decided to write Adric out. It was not Matthew Waterhouse's decision to leave. John Nathan Turner basically fired him in a way by writing him out of the script.
And that and
Um, and
Has
it was
Matthew
not.
Waterhouse
yeah,
gone on
that's true too.
record?
Having two. What'd you
What
say,
was that question, Tim?
Kim?
Is Matthew Waterhouse on record as his feelings about this?
He did do
Apparently
an interview.
Yeah, apparently. Well, he's fine with it now. He wasn't as fine with it at the time, because apparently he found out that he was being killed by looking at Peter Davidson's script over his shoulder.
Oh,
Oh man.
That's horrible. That is incredibly horrible.
wow,
Which-
that's a blow to the dick.
That's actually, which is interesting because that's actually something where unless they were prepping for Time Flight, I would have left that out of their copies of the script because they don't actually mention the fact that he's
Patrick
dying. I
dies
mean,
the
you
entire
turn
time,
around
yeah.
and be like, okay, now girls, you need to react, or it's like, yeah, you're all reacting to the fact that you're watching something horrible and leave it at that until, I mean, I'm trying to come up with an example, but there's definitely been things like that where that's happened on screen and the actor didn't figure out what they were reacting to until they turned around and watched it and it worked out great. I'm just trying to come up with an example right now.
Mm.
Well, all they would have to
I
say
don't
is
think-
people
I
that
don't
you've
think Luke
known
knew what
previously
he was
throughout the
react-
episode are
I
dying
don't-
right now in a big explosion. Look away and look depressed. Start crying about it. The end.
I'm not sure if Mark Hamill knew what he was reacting to in Empire.
No, because they actually
Yeah.
had that when they filmed that scene. They had a different statement, and
That's what I thought.
when
Mhm.
they dubbed in the James Earl Jones voice, it was completely different than what's his face said. Prowse.
Then Proust said, yeah. By the way, Proust was in a couple of the Hammer films. Did you know that?
Yeah,
Not
he played
surprising,
Frankenstein's
but that's-
monster.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try to stick it off the tangent
A couple
here.
of times, but yeah.
All right. Mhm.
All right, so I believe we're on Aaron. What you didn't like?
We've hit on most of the stuff, or a good chunk of the stuff that I didn't like, but has anyone, you guys haven't mentioned kind of the puddle, or kind of the overall violence, I guess?
Oh,
Yeah,
the
I want to
gooeyes.
Yeah.
point out, like, kind of the gore.
We have not mentioned Sayward's love of murder.
Yeah, his love of murder, and particularly the gore in the first episode where we see people as puddles of goo on the floor. That kind of, again, calls to mind the War of the Worlds TV series where people would, once they were possessed by an alien and then killed, they would melt into puddles of goo on the floor.
You have lots of bad memories about this show, don't you?
I don't know why I watched it so much when I was a kid. I thought it was the next best thing to sliced bread, and looking
It
back
ended up
at it,
haunting
was
your
a
memories.
terrible. That was that was my parents' worst. You know, that was the worst thing my parents could do was allow me to watch that show, because it's kind of fucked me up a little bit.
Yeah, this was definitely a dark era of Doctor Who in more than one way.
Yeah, that's going to actually segue to what I don't like is the fact that this is another slice of what would be considered dystopian science fiction that Soward was fond of. Blake Seven was a series that started that kind of trend in British science fiction. I like Blake Seven. I hated the ending, but let's not talk about that. It is what brought Alien to our screen because that's the same type of dystopian science fiction. And it's obvious that Soward eats this stuff for breakfast because almost everything he wrote had that kind of dystopian feel to it. And this has that if you look at the military and everything on how they're reacting. The commercial space flight captain who's determined to make her bonus at the risk of everybody's safety. It all has that dollar sign first dystopian feel. And yeah, if they could,
Mm-hmm.
if John Nathan Turner could have afforded Ridley Scott, he would have gotten Ridley Scott for this because that's kind of the feel he was aiming for. And and that goes hand in hand with the gross, gory, acidy deaths of people on the planet and
It's just, yeah, it was a
a
little
few
too
other
gross.
there a few other touches that they've had is all has that flair to it. And by this time, we had
I'm,
had 5 years of it, and it was getting old. 5 years of it on British television. I mean,
oh, okay, I was gonna say, I'm like, this was only a year, about 2 years into JNT, and I think
no,
Sayward wasn't the editor yet. But yeah, in terms of other, I can see with other things.
yeah, it's this
I
should
gotta
have
say,
been.
at least they knew where to draw the line with Adric. They didn't, you know, they didn't have, you know, a big violent death scene for him. He had a moment of being himself, and then the ship crashed.
Okay, so let's go on to your favorite scene in this serial. And again, Matt, you're up.
Favorite scene? Um, End of episode 2.
End of episode 2.
All the Cybermen waking up and marching out. You got the Cyberman theme going full blast.
Yes.
Behold my
That was
army,
I
doctor.
had
Oh,
that
Boom,
I
boom,
I
the
should have
scene there.
mentioned
boom,
I should have
boom.
mentioned that for what I liked is I loved the music of this era. You know how they
Yeah,
get that how they get that
it's
cyber
what
dinks.
the moon-based Cyberman theme with a little extra drum, isn't it?
That's not a drum. That dinging sound.
No, he's talking about just the song itself. He doesn't.
Oh,
He's not saying what thing he's talking about. He's talking about the drumming.
it's not really the moon-based cyber theme. This one was an original composition. It has some feeling.
Oh,
It
okay,
it
it
evokes the
just
same
borrows
feeling.
from it.
But yeah, this was done by the studio production house at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the what really is always stuck in my mind is that dinging sound that they make during the theme. Do you know how they accomplish that sound?
Not a clue.
Trying to
They
think if it's is
used
it if it I'm like if it's the sound I'm thinking about, it's the sound that sound like a marching sound effect, but I might not that might not be what you're
that
thinking
that
of.
No, the
that
ding ding sound.
yeah, as they're marching that but a ding dong ding dong dong that sound.
Boom, boom,
Yeah, they got
boom,
that
boom.
by using
I think I know what you mean.
a xylophone hammer on a television aerial antenna.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, Bill. He's talking about the really high pitched, like double note that goes off
Yeah,
every once in a while.
Okay.
yeah, and you'll see that more when we talk about Attack next week because it's also in that. I think it's also in Silver Nemesis, but I can't be sure because I have not seen that all the way through. Anyway, um,
First for a couple of us.
yeah, that is an awesome scene. How about you, Bill?
I was actually going to go with the March of the Cybermen.
Well, Matt
Um,
got there first.
Joink.
yes,
Deal
he
with it.
did. Consult the notes. Hmm.
I'm hearing someone's background whistling.
Yeah, I'm hearing it too.
I'm hearing it too. Um, I
Tim,
mean,
how high
there
is your
is
game?
also an iconic scene from the invasion reused here, but I'm not sure if I want to choose that. Other than that, I mean, that definitely is the standout scene.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think if anything else is elevated up to that level. I mean, there's definitely. I mean, this scene with the cyber leader taunting the doctor about emotions stands out. I'm not sure if I'd really pick it as a favorite though, but it probably would be my second favorite of the series.
Okay, well then let's go for it as that favorite, as stated that your favorite had been taken. So, um, yeah, and that, and I think is another one that they would go back to a couple of times in Doctor Who, is the Cybermen ranting on
Yeah,
the. Well, they've done it before and they'll do it again.
yeah.
Although this time it's kind of hypocritical because yes, the cyber leader is
Well,
talking about it
in
while
this case,
being.
I think the yeah. I mean,
He's
like,
doing it.
what's positive about that is, oh, not sure if your voice is cutting in and out or if it's just
No, you
things.
keep
I
cutting
don't
each
know.
other off. One of you
Um,
finish the sentence, please.
but what stands out about at least in this one is the doctor's responses to him and the Cybermen just kind of brushing that off, which both really does fit both of their characters.
Yeah, and at the hypocrisy of it too, because the cyber leader's talking about how emotions make you weak while being a smug, arrogant prick.
While being bent on revenge.
Yeah.
Technically bent on revenge, yes.
All right. So, Tim, your favorite scene?
My favorite scene was when the Cybermen were reviewing old episodes of Doctor Who. Like it says, this man is the Doctor. He has interfered before, but
Yes.
it's like I thought that was a very witty wink wink to the audience of sort of like Easter eggs in plain sight
Well, it wasn't
type
just that; it
thing.
was also the fact that the Cybermen hadn't been seen in 7 years. So they also knew that while they were while
Yeah.
they were putting the Cybermen in, they were also reintroducing it to a whole audience that hadn't been born the last time Cybermen had been on the screen. And therefore, they had decided that they needed to give a little bit of back history to let them know that where the Doctor had faced them before. And ironic about that scene is the fact that the second Doctor one, the Doctor had mentioned that this is the form that locked him to the ice tomb on Telos, and the scene that's actually shown, I believe, was from either the moon base or the
It's from
invasion,
the Wheel in Space.
or the Wheel in
Well,
Space. That's right.
I know they show a scene from the Wheel in Space because it's the one. I believe you have, I believe you have orders to kill me now.
Yep. And of course, they couldn't show a scene from Tomb because at that point, Tomb was completely and totally lost, and would still be lost until 92, 93. So
Yeah.
I just found that amusing. Nowadays, if they were making that same scene, they would have actually had a line from the Tomb. So, Aaron, what was your favorite scene?
Mm, my favorite scene would trying to think here. I thought I had it written down. Hang on. I thought I had one written down. I don't. Um. Dang it. actually kind of like a lot of the scenes that the captain was in.
Yeah, she was a very classically trained actor that a lot of people thought was miscast for this, but at the same time, she's playing that commercial captain trying to bring in her bonus. So I didn't feel that she was as misplaced as a lot of people have said.
She didn't really
Yeah.
spark any interest for me though either, but that's just me.
Yeah. Probably just her iconic scene where she's staring kind of determinedly at the screen, going, "Yeah, that's impossible. No." So that
Okay.
would probably be for me.
All right. I think my favorite scene would be the actual cyber attack on the when the Cybermen are launching their attack on the crew, and it's just the crew keeps fighting, and the advance, you just see the Cybermen stepping over bodies as they're doing it. It seemed very well done. So now we're going to move on to the least favorite scene. And yes, we're starting with you, Matt.
Oh, least
What
favorite
scene was
scene.
just too cheesy for your taste? And I know that's a big bar for you, Matt.
You know, I believe Bill mentioned this as part of his favorites, but there's one particular line during that I do have to smirk at. The doctor asking the Cybermen have they never had a decently prepared meal before.
Yeah,
when was the last time you had a well cooked meal?
Yeah, even
Okay,
in the
I
one of the
get what
behind
you're
the scenes
saying.
interview, they noticed that one as being a bit odd.
A little bit out of place, just a little. And can you
But
just
it gets the
imagine that the
mental image.
Cybermen sitting down having a nice homemade dinner, going, "This is excellent. Why have we not had this before?
That's exactly what was said in the
Delicious.
behind the scenes, by the way.
Oh yes, more steak, please.
Do Cybermen need to eat?
Who
No.
needs to invade when you have all the steak in the universe?"
Of course, that also then gets to the concept of a fat Cyberman.
Don't we have one in about another episode?
All right. So Bill, what was your least favorite scene?
I'm not sure if I can call this least favorite, but I have to mention this because of how pointlessly it is in its place. As you'd mentioned before, there are quite a few members of the audience who have never seen a Cyberman before. They've appeared in a grand total of 4 episodes within the past 14 years, give or take. And they decide to have a cliffhanger of a Cyberman yelling while controlling androids, meaning that anybody who happened to either miss or not be alive for Revenge of the Cybermen is just sitting there like, oh, the cliffhanger is that there are androids controlling the androids. That's
Actually, the Cybermen were still popular enough, even though they hadn't been on screen a long time, that there were still like art books and stuff about them, though. So even the really young audience still sort of knew what the Cybermen were.
But I see his point that yeah,
It does come out in a little nowhere a little bit, yes.
it was a bit left field. All right, so we've got Matt's, we've got Bill's, Tim.
The scene where the doctor is practically screaming, "I'm not going back into E-space. It's too dangerous. It's too dangerous." And then Nissa, or wait, not Nissa, Tegan says, "Is it really all bad as that?" And the doctor just snaps at her, is like, "Would I be gone like that if it was?" And Nissa, I'm sorry, Tegan, just looks like a dog, like a sad little puppy dog, like.
Like a dog that's been whipped, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, well, this is a nice opening scene, like to establish, the team.
Yeah,
Because
at the same time, the doctor's also a bit pissy because he had tried to get Tegan to her airplane again and failed.
which explains Adric's crack at the beginning.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they've been
Oh,
they've
the
been trying all
visitation has
season.
been the Black Orchid. Yeah,
Yeah, they'd been trying all season to get to Earth,
they got to
and
Earth.
they keep missing their target by a matter of years or miles. And he's promised Tegan that he'll make her get to the airport on time, and it's
He'll
just
get to Heathrow next episode.
right. And every time he fails, so he's getting churlish, and Adric's not helping by being a
Mhm.
douche. So it's high pressure, but yeah, I get your point that if you're coming into this blind like us, it looks a bit odd. All right, Aaron, your least favorite scene.
My least favorite scene would have to be when what's her face dies. The scientist that they've dragged along for like how many how many times have they dragged her along, and now she dies via Cybermen, a pointless death. And that was just like, wow, this was kind of a waste of a character. That kind of
All right.
angered me. It kind of emphasized the whole,
We just want someone on screen that we've kind of known for a little while just so we can kill them.
Yep.
yeah.
And my least favorite scene should come as a surprise to no one. It's the death of Adric.
Yeah.
While I don't argue that that killing the character was the only solution, to go out like that, um, failing to do the wrong thing for the right reasons, as just kind of like, yeah, let's just basically say you died as you lived a total load at this point.
Mhm.
Adric, you've been here for 2 seasons and you're now a complete and utter failure. Take your lumps and die. And it just is frustrating to have the character go out like that. If he had died heroically, actually saving people in the process, I would not be half as upset. But if he had succeeded, the human race would not have existed.
Here's a
So,
question: if they changed the ending just slightly so that the people that got off in the escape pod were helped by Adric instead of trying to drag him with them while he runs away from them, like if he was the reason they were able to escape and had managed to delay the Cybermen or whatever, how would that
that would have
fix that sequence for you?
not entirely. Not entirely, it would have helped. But instead but even so, it's just the entire bit that he does is a complete and utter failure, and even what he's attempting to do he doesn't succeed. It's just kind of makes his death doubly pointless.
Oh, and could we also point out another technical failure in that sequence too?
Not really, because we don't have the time.
Oh, that still.
We have 10 minutes left for final thoughts and ratings. So I will move on to the final thoughts, Matt.
Overall, this was a pretty good episode. It got us a little swampy in the middle there, but it did clear itself out. And overall, I think this is probably another fairly decent step forward for the Cybermen, and it was a nice update for them. Um, and I look forward to finally finishing the rest of the stories. Although I've only seen the next one in its entirety so far, the remaining 80s Cybermen.
All right, Bill.
This episode it's a very good episode if you look at Cybermen as base under siege monsters. It reuses a lot of iconic sequences in a well shot way, in an effective way. The March of the Cybermen, the hatching Cyber invasion, things like that are very well done. It does get a bit weaker when you try to look at the overall story, though. At that point, it starts to go from being a very high quality base under siege episode to being a very middling episode of Doctor Who.
All right, Tim.
overall, I thought this was a very decent, well-written episode that pulled off its emotional gravitas with handily, and some of my main problem was that it didn't have things for everyone to do, so there was like some dead weight there, but the pacing was okay, and I really liked Peter Davison's performance.
All right, Aaron.
Overall, I do agree that the direction was pretty well done. I feel like the action was pretty intense. You did not exactly, there was some foreshadowing of Adric's death, but you didn't really see it coming either. So I enjoyed it.
Okay. What we have here is not actually one story, but two. That is kind of poorly sandwiched together in the middle by the writer Eric Soward. But yet, even through this, the directing and the acting both tend to manage to work its way through most of the faults, and the visual effects that you see for this episode are probably some of the best that we have seen from Doctor Who as of this time. Um, it still has a few issues to hammer out, and the set design um, could have been a little more detailed, yet it still manages to provide what it needs to. Um, so while it's not perfect, I still say it's pretty good. All right, and now we're going to go to our ratings, and we're going to start with Matt.
Um, if it wasn't for the weird, awkward sandwiching towards the middle, I would have probably given this a 5. As it stands, that kind of degraded on it, and yeah, some of the sets were a little off, and that took from it a little bit too. But the direction and a lot of the acting does help it out, so I can't give it any lower than a 4.
4 flat?
Yep.
4 flat. All right. Bill.
With some of the scripting issues and general misuse of Cybermen as anything other than not Daleks, uh, ultimately the strengths and weaknesses of this episode are even out enough that I'm giving it a 3.0.
3 flat. All right. Tim?
Uh, it was well made, but it's just not one of my personal favorites, so I'm going to give it a 4 flat.
All right. Aaron?
I'm going to go ahead and give it a 3.5. It wasn't terrible, but again, I've seen better, as always.
All right. I gave Revenge a 3, and this is a far cry above Revenge. Yet at the same time, I think it does fall flatter than The Invasion, and definitely nowhere near perfection. I am going to have to give this a 4. And that makes our average.
No, so, I mean, that makes me the negative one again.
Yep. And that puts our average for this episode at a 3.7.
I was gonna say almost a 375, isn't it?
Yep.
Close.
And so that will wrap up our second take on Earthshock, our first having been way back in the early days, and our ratings for that one was lost to the annals of history.
And chewed up by Sky or by
Fraps.
Fraps
By
at
Fraps.
the time.
So it's nice to go back and take a second look at this and be able to write down our ratings for posterity. So it'll do for us. Next week we will be going into the Sixth Doctor era, since we
we
already
are
done
skipping
the
the five doctors since we do have an existing review of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And instead we are going to go on to Attack of the Cybermen during his... Boy, there's a lot of doctors that deal with the Cybermen in the first season, isn't there? In their first season, I should say.
Yeah.
Baker did it. Yeah,
pretty much everyone except Eccleston and Smith and Hartnell.
Yeah, well, neither
and
did McCoy. Neither
True.
did McCoy. It was his second season. But yeah, Baker, Troughton, Tom Baker, uh, Peter Davidson, and Colin Baker all deal with Cybermen their first season. So we'll be
and
dealing with
Tennant
the.
and Capaldi.
Yep. So we will take a look at Colin Baker's take on the Cybermen in Attack of the Cybermen.
Yep. If you enjoy listening to us for some reason or enjoy watching us, you can check us out, of course, at twitch.tv/unearthlypodcast, unearthlypodcast.insomniatic.co.uk for our YouTube archives, which is going to start filling in with some of our older episodes. Right now, it's only got the most recent uploads, but it will start to fill out. And mixcloud.com/an unearthly podcast with an underscore between each of the three words. On social media, of course, we're at facebook.com/unearthly podcast and twitter.com/unearthly pod. And if you really like us and want to help us improve the show a bit, you can head on over to patreon.com/unearthly podcast. Don't forget to join us next week for Attack of the Cybermen, written by a pen name that nobody actually knows who.
Written by a lot of people that wish to remain anonymous.
Up to 3 people.
Anonymous.
We think.
There we go.
Anonymous. Do 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 do.
And on that bombshell, it's time to end.